J-Doodle Tales Enjoy.
Helixion Catalyst. Chapter 1. The Last Test. The observation chamber lights hummed softly above the apparatus. Dr. James A. Felt stood alone beside the control console, staring through the thick, reinforced glass at the machine he had spent the last 12 years building. Inside the chamber, concentric rings of sensor arrays surrounded a single steel chair wired with neural monitors and bioelectric conductors. Fiber lines ran from the rings to a central amplifier column positioned behind the chair like the spine of some mechanical skeleton. Every component in the room had a purpose. Every wire carried data, and every calculation behind the machine pointed toward a single idea that most of Helixion biophysics had already decided was impossible. Emotion produced energy, not metaphorically, not philosophically, but physically. Every human emotion triggered measurable electrical storms inside the brain, billions of neurons firing in synchronized patterns, sending signals cascading through the nervous system. Fear, rage, joy, grief. Each emotional state produced a distinct neural signature. James believed those signatures did more than shape behavior. He believed they generated usable energy, enough to be measured, enough, perhaps, to be harnessed. Behind him, the laboratory door slid open. James, Dr. Karen Ishida, stepped into the control room holding a tablet under one arm. She didn't need to say anything else. The tone in her voice already told him why she had come. "They're starting the review in 10 minutes, she said. James kept his eyes on the chamber as he replied. "Already?" Karen walked beside him and glanced through the glass. "You knew it was coming." The tablet in her hand flickered with the summary of the board's decision. Funding review, project evaluation, recommended termination. "Helixion can't keep supporting a program without measurable output," she said quietly. James exhaled slowly and responded. "They have output." Karen gave him a patient look. "They have theories." James gestured toward the machine. "That apparatus can measure emotional neural emissions in real time. It can record them," she corrected. "It hasn't proven they produce usable energy." James folded his arms. "That's because we've never amplified the signal." Karen turned toward him. "You're not suggesting?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied the chamber again. 12 years of work. Of his life. 12 years of arguing the same point. Emotion was the most powerful neurological phenomenon the human brain produced. The problem wasn't that the signal was weak. The problem was that the instruments used to measure it were. Karen followed his gaze. "James," she said carefully, "whatever you're thinking, don't." James finally turned toward her, his eyes burning with intent. "I need one successful demonstration. You've already had dozens of tests," she said, as she took an unconscious step towards him. "With volunteers," he said, shaking his head. Karen frowned but answered. And the volunteers were trying to generate emotional responses on command." His voice rising slightly. She understood instantly. "That's the entire protocol." "It's flawed," James replied. Emotion couldn't be manufactured on cue like a laboratory stimulus. Real emotional reactions came from personal investment, from memory, from belief, from loss. The volunteers had tried to simulate emotions that James had lived with for years now. Karen shook her head. "No." James stepped toward the chamber door. As he said, "Just one test." "James!" Her voice hardened before she continued. "You are not connecting that machine to your own nervous system." He rested his hand on the door panel. "It's safe." "You don't know that," she shot back. "The amplifier only boosts neural signal output." He tried to reassure her. Karen crossed her arms. "That's exactly the problem." James studied the apparatus through the glass. The system had been designed to observe emotional neural patterns, but observation had limits. Amplification would reveal the real scale of the phenomenon. He looked back at Karen. "If my theory is correct," he said quietly, "this will prove it." Karen held his gaze for a long moment. Then she sighed. "You're impossible." James gave a faint smile. "I've heard that before." He opened the chamber door. Cool air drifted outward as he stepped inside. Karen watched from the console, tension written across her face. James sat in the chair and began attaching the neural connectors to his temples and wrists. The monitors flickered to life. Brainwave readings, hormonal response data, bioelectric field measurements. Karen's voice came through the intercom. "This is a terrible idea. I want you to know that." James adjusted the final sensor and leaned back in the chair, ignoring her comment. "Begin recording." Karen hesitated before her finger hit the activate button. Then the system started logging data. Inside the chamber, James closed his eyes.